Hello and welcome to game number 2 of my series, I guess. It's only these 2 games, but it's going to be Protoss vs. Zerg, a continuation of the last video where we looked at the 2-base Colossus push against Stefano-style Max Roach play. So we're going to look at a more refined version of the build in this game. And we will be scouting out. Now I see no spawning pool, which means I can go Nexus first. But of course he is blocking the Nexus, so I'm going to have to go ahead and make the Forge. Now let's slow it down just a little bit. Now, one thing you got to watch out for with these Zergs who early drone scout, a lot of them will do stuff like proxy hatches, which is really obnoxious. So you really want to keep an eye on that drone. Kill it if at all possible. Now, I did pylon block this hatchery, but I failed to block this one, so I'm just going to go back here and get this one. And we do a cannon, and then a pylon, and then our gateway. And he might lose his Overlord, actually. That would be nice for me. Yep, he will indeed. So, you know, a lot of bad Zergs will do that. Come on, recording, don't screw up. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, and I will be able to go ahead and plop down a building here if I need to, but, you know, I do see where Zerglings are at the moment, and I have plenty of time. And I will see this hatchery as well. I like to do a full wall in when I'm doing this particular build, because you're really just sitting in your base for the entire time, and it's a bit safer against stuff like Baneling busts and whatever else. You want to get to that mid-game as safely as you can. You really don't need to take risks or cause the Zerg to drone particularly. So I do start +1 and Warp Gate pretty quickly, and we're going to slow it down because we're getting to the nitty-gritty of the build. At about 30 supply, I'm making this assimilator at my natural. These two both go down at the same time at around 20. And I'm making a Zealot, and then I'm just going to make sentries. The Zealot is pretty much just to clear the watchtowers. You know, put a tiny bit of pressure on whatever I can do. And here's the robotics facility. Now he will try and get this, but I have my Zealot in a grid position back here. You can't really see it. Let's see if I can I don't know. What's the controls for that? Insert? Yeah, well, anyway, it's in there. And now I do have Forge and my Twilight Council going down when +1 attack is about 2/3 done, or maybe half done. You want to start your Twilight Council and your Forge at the same time. Notice we've only been on 1 gate so far. That's totally fine. Our wall-in, our sentries, and our cannons will protect us from just about anything. Although, it's notable that really fast muta will hit within a couple of minutes, so that is kind of dangerous. Because we really don't have very much here, but we are starting Blink. We're going to start +2 attack and +1 armor. I could have waited on Blink and done it after I started the armor and attack upgrades. Blink is not necessary to be, like, rushed. And the first building out of my robo will actually be a Warp Prism. I want to start putting on a bit of pressure, but the Warp Prism will also help me scout the Zerg a little bit. We see Zerg is actually getting a fair amount of gas and not mining minerals at this base, which is a little interesting. I'm not totally sure why he's doing that, but either way. Of course I will fly right, my Warp Prism flies right by his Overlord. Not great. And I will next make an Immortal while I make my Robotics Bay. And at this point I'm going to throw down some gateways. These could have been a bit earlier because now I only have 1 gate worth of production for this Warp Prism, so not a huge deal. And I'm just going to, you know, harass a little bit. I don't need to do that much. Queens are so strong, by the way, against Zealots now. It's pretty ridiculous, I think. It's really, really hard to pressure Zergs now in the early game. But you know what? That's just something you got to deal with, I guess. It's not going anywhere. So now we are just making our researching our upgrades out of the forges. We want to get up to +3 attack, +2 armor. And here's our observer. And we will now start Colossus production. This observer can do a lot. It can watch out for burrow. It can scout the Zerg. It can scout the Zerg's army positioning and their tech. All of which is pretty good, like, to execute this build as ideally as you can. So I'm focusing most of my chrono boost on these like ground upgrades. This should start +3. I will when I have the money. The reason for this is that I want them to be finished, and they take the longest amount of time. So I just want the chrono boost those. The Colossi, I'll have 3 Colossus by the time the push is ready. That's not really an issue, even if I don't chrono boost them that much. So at this time, I'm pretty much chrono boosting upgrades and adding warp gates and making Colossus. That's basically my plan right now. Notice how probe saturation, not great, but it's about where I want to stop. You don't really need more than this many probes. You could probably stop at about 50, in fact. I might have a few too many. Because notice how I'm a bit oversaturated at my natural. I really don't need this many workers. And here's a little bit more Zealot harassment. This is pretty much just to make sure Zerg doesn't get too greedy. You know, if he just goes without any units at all, then you can put a little bit of hurt on him. But scouting is also very important. I see that he doesn't have that many roaches here. So I have to infer that he's teching. And muta is a pretty good guess. And my observer will get in here and see the spire, which will make me pretty much instantly throw down 3 or 4 cannons at my natural. And I actually kind of selected a bunch of probes here, but no big deal. +3 attack is on the way, making my 3rd Colossus. The timing for this push will usually coincide with the 3rd Colossus. And I'm going to destroy one of my gateways to get out. I've got more than enough gateways. You also want to hide these Colossus as late as possible. And here come the mutas. Of course, he picks the exact moment that I'm moving out to do this. But I do have a lot of cannons here, and even though this is a lot of mutas, it'll buy me enough time to get my probes out and to bring my army back without losing a whole lot. So this is really the key. And I already have Blink, and I've got a good number of Stalkers here. So he's trying to focus my Nexus, which is really a mistake, I think. He should be going for pylons and stuff. But now I will chase him out. Don't worry too much about your push being delayed. You're delaying your push on purpose to make a stronger army. It's really not like a big deal. So now we will be making, just remake those cannons. You know, he's waiting until you move out to go back in. Just like that. So what I'm going to do is just use the cannons and a warping of Stalkers, because his muta count is not that big. And just use good micro and keep warping in Stalkers in your main while you push out. Shouldn't be too bad. Like if you went for really early mutas, which you should be able to scout, then you know it's going to be a bit tougher. He's going to have a lot more and earlier. So you really need to watch out for that and make cannons earlier. Probably hold off Colossus production and get more Stalkers. But you can still go into this a little later. Although I'd probably use High Templar instead of Colossus if we were going committed early mutas. And now here's the push. We use the force fields and the choke points pretty easily. And he does have some roaches down here. But the roaches and lings just don't really stand a chance. He will get the warp prism, unfortunately. And all of his mutas are actually going to die in just a bit. Here they come. Oh crap, I spoiled it for you. But I mean, yeah, he doesn't have any ground forces, and there's not enough mutas here to support that. He will get some of my colossi, but that's not a huge deal. Of course, I am making more. You don't really need to stop Colossus production. And I'm pushing in here. Notice how low Zerg is on money and how even we are in supply. It's pretty important, I think. And it's so necessary against these roaches to have some form of splash damage and to use Blink Micro. Do not neglect Blink Micro. I know some of you beginner players might decide like, oh well, that's a fancy type of micro, but macro is enough. Well, I mean, you're often right, but micro really does help a lot, especially against stuff like this where you just have so many roaches, you need every edge you can get. So I'm microing the weakened stalkers back if I can. And here come a few more mutas, but there's really just nothing here that can do anything, and he leaves. If you're noticing a pattern here, is that no Zerg ever GGs in any of my videos. So, you know, this is the pretty strong push, and at this point I am starting to get mined out, so I would go and double expand right now. I mean, the game is over, so I didn't bother, but I was planning to do that, as you saw in our last game. So we're going to back up just a little bit and look at the timing for this push. It's right about 14 minutes. Yeah, so he does come in with the mutas at this point. So we're going to look at when we actually move out, but also notice our upgrades. We are at 2-2 right at this moment. We're not done with our upgrades yet. His mutas are at 0-0. We have such amazingly good upgrades, which is really the key to this whole push out, I think. We'll get a lot of probes actually in that attack, but it's not a huge deal. Alright, so we're just leaving some stalkers here. We've got the cannons, and we are going to push out. And now, here's our push out timing. Slightly delayed because of the mutas, but not a big deal. We have 3-2 upgrades. We have 3 colossus. We have at least 3 sentries, if not maybe 3 or 4. And our gas is actually a little high. We can warp in some sentries right here if we need to. Each of them has a pretty good amount of energy. Let's see, we got how many force fields we have? 4, 8, 9 force fields available at this moment. And we really need a good positioning for our army. And we also have an immortal, a 3-2 immortal. Now his roach upgrades are at 0-0. This is because he switched into muta. But I mean, if he's going Stefano style roaches, we'll be a little ahead in upgrades. He'll have some decent upgrades, maybe 2-2 by the time we hit. I'm not sure on that build, to be honest with you. But I mean, the roaches are gonna melt. That's not even a problem. And we're basically guaranteed to kill at least his third, if not his natural. I mean, I've pretty much never lost doing this build yet, so I would say it's a pretty damn strong push. I'm not going to say there's nothing Zerg can do. Of course there is. I don't know what it is yet, but you know, Zergs are not helpless against this. They just need to, you know, figure it out. But yeah, we're just going to employ our Blink Micro with our Colossus in the back. Don't let them get in too close. You know, they love to do that. Run and snipe the Colossus, but we got to stop it. And you know, once I've killed all the mutas, I can pretty safely bring my stalkers back out. And whoops, so my stalkers get caught, so I've got to blink them out. But yeah, this is a very, very strong push. We have strong upgrades. We have a big army. Lots of Colossus and tech. We get Blink, Colossus, and 3-2 by the 15-minute mark. If our push gets completely demolished, we are dead. There's no question about that. However, I really think that that's the case at any stage in PvZ. If Zerg manages to kill your whole army, it's really tough to recover. So why not just all in anyway? Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just justifying an all-in, but so what? That's what Zergs are doing now. They're doing 3 base all-ins with roaches, so that's That's only fair, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching. That's gonna be it. Stay tuned for more games and whatever else. Bye bye.